welcome back to Lit for Queers, the corner of the internet where I talk to you about queer content, mainly books, but like today, not always. And so, with that being said, we got the floof now, and he's gone. So, today we're going to talk about something slightly different than usual. We're not talking about books today, but we're talking about queer fandom. And one specific topic that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and I want to hear your opinion about. So, what I'm referring to is the fandom's queering male, allegedly straight characters out of films, TV shows, and books. And the reason why I'm making a video on this topic is because the more I think about this, the more I don't think that it's totally good of us as queer people to keep on insisting and keep on queering every male friendship and every male character that we see on television, in books, or on our screens. First, I'm going to talk about why I think this happens a lot, and then I'm going to talk about the reasons why I don't think that doing this actually moves the needle forward. Not for us as queer members of society, and not for anything. So, reason number one, in my opinion, is the lack of representation in media. As I was growing up, so around 10 years ago, when I was 15 or 16, the internet was flooded, or at least my corner of the internet on Tumblr and Twitter was flooded with a lot of gay ships. We're talking about the age of Tumblr, we're talking about the age of the Super Who-lock, so Supernatural, Doctor Who, and Sherlock, where two of those fandoms have two of the biggest queer ships that we've seen in the last decade or so. And those are two ships that never sailed, let's say, and nevertheless, they were incredibly important for a lot of people. And they were also two couples that kind of threw me into understanding what fandom could mean to a lot of people and what fanfiction writing was. Before that, I had no idea what this was. And I'm not saying that these ships were not important, that there wasn't queer baiting going on. That's not the conversation that we're having right now. But growing up in that environment and then kind of like continuing to be in that environment, we had a lot of queer ships that perhaps sailed, perhaps didn't. Some of the characters might have been made queer in the canon, some of them might not have. And what I realized was that a lot of people didn't see themselves represented on television. When people were talking about Teen Wolf and how they loved Styles and Derek together, me included, they were also talking about how Styles' almost obvious bisexuality kept on being hinted at but never expressed. And bisexuality is one of those sexualities that is still not very much represented on television or in books, in media in general. I'm actually going to have one of my friends come on this channel and talk about this, since her master's thesis was exactly about bisexuality erasure in media. So you already have a corner of the LGBTQ plus community that is not really talked about. And 10 years ago, this was even worse, right? We didn't really talk about asexuality. We didn't really talk about what that meant. And all of that conversation that we're having now about these topics was not really going on much. And so people kind of clung on to these ships. They really wanted to see themselves represented in tiny bits of these stories. However, we're in an age of media where a lot more sexualities and gender identities are represented. Especially as a book person, you can find a lot more media out there focusing on a lot of different identities. But we're not getting into that part yet. So reason number one, in my opinion, was the lack of representation at the time, when a lot of us were teenagers and now in our 20s, we're still writing fan fictions and just be interested in these couples. The second reason is, have you ever noticed how a lot of fan fiction, a lot of fan content is produced by women? And this includes gay male content or queer male content, or, that focuses on queer men. Sometimes that is a topic of debate, sometimes it isn't. And it might sound a little strange to people out there when you tell them that the ship you're dying to have, fulfilled on screen or in your book as a woman is a queer ship. Because a lot of people don't understand why you would see yourself reflected into a couple of dudes, right? So what I think happens is that queer men are generally seen as safer to women than straight men. And two men that have come together and expressed feelings for each other and attraction to each other in a world where in a lot of countries, in a lot of contexts, is still not safe for them, it's seen as a healthier portrayal of masculinity. And it's not that often, especially as I was saying before, at the times, like 5 years ago, it was not that common to see a healthy type of masculinity in media. Like off the top of my head, the only good portrayal that I can think of right off the bat is Connell's masculinity in Normal People. We're not talking about queer masculinity in this case, but that's kind of what comes to mind if I try to think of a healthy portrayal of masculinity. Give me other examples. There's going to be other examples, but this is what comes to me right now. And at the time, you just did not see any straight men have a conversation about masculinity and about what a healthy masculinity would look like. And so for women, I think it was a way to kind of express their wishes for their men in case they were actually straight, this women. And it was a wish for them to be as affectionate, as open with their feelings as these queer couples were with each other. But all in all, as I said at the beginning of this video, and the reason why I'm making this video is that I don't think that we're actually helping the queer movement at all, at large, by continuously queering these allegedly straight characters. But yeah, I don't think that a lot of the times we're helping the queer community by queering straight characters. So this is nothing groundbreaking. What I'm about to say is nothing groundbreaking. You might have made these considerations yourself. You might have chatted to your other queer friends about it. You might have wondered whenever you were looking up fan fiction of a specific couple if this was good. And I'm going to just add my 2 cents to it. So one reason why I don't think that queering straight male characters is entirely good is fetishization and infantilization. So this is, I don't know why I pointed at 2 fingers. I'm going to reunite that under one. So those 2 are under one, in my opinion, right now. I think these 2 terms are pretty self-explanatory. I think a lot of people have seen, especially with infantilization, a lot of people have seen how queer couples are treated almost as a cute tabletop, like a cute little thing to pet and to look at, instead of grown men or grown teenagers with actual personalities and feelings. And I think this is really dangerous to actual queer men and a lot of queer people, because that kind of relegates them to specific stereotypes, not to mention that it doesn't allow for a lot of complexity of character. If you're relegated to a little box where you're the gay best friend, or you're just a gay sidekick or something like that, and you're seen as a little pure gem, a pure little child, whenever you're actually going to come out of that phase and maybe fight back against it, or you just simply grow up and do adult things, then there's a lot of confusion from the fandom, and there's a lot oh, that scene was out of character, like my little baby will never do that. Things like that. There's a lot of, it doesn't leave for a lot of room for growth, both when it comes to real people and when it comes to media. So I think this is one really big problem. And then the second would be, as I was saying, stereotypes. I hate stereotypes when it comes to queer people. Those have been used against myself personally, a lot of friends, and against the community so much. And sometimes they come from a sort of ally place, and sometimes they purely don't, and they're just harmful and detrimental to everybody. When it comes to queer couples or like queering characters, I'm sure we've all seen in fan fictions and in discourses online how there's such a division between who's supposed to be the man and who's supposed to be the woman, which in itself is a topic that is intrinsically really problematic. Just because somebody might take a more active role in certain, I'm not going to be censored on YouTube, but because of certain preferences, let's say, gay people, or especially gay men, get relegated to a certain personality. You can't be this if you're also not into that preference, let's say. If you're small and more effeminate, then you can take an active role as your preference. There's a lot of that going on. And from what I've seen in my last 10 years in a fandom, or like in many fandoms, there tends to be a focus on physicality and what one person of the couple that you're trying to queer is looking like. Then it translates immediately into a certain preference, and I don't think this is good. I don't think this is good, and I don't think this moves the needle away from putting people in boxes. Because you look like this, then you have to act like this, and your preference needs to be this. Otherwise, nothing makes sense anymore. We as queer people are a lot more complex than that, and I think we owe that to each other to remember that we're complex human beings, and our external, external appearance doesn't translate to a lot of other things. Not to mention that it kind of reduces all relationships to 1950s stereotypes. The pretty big reason, actually, in my opinion, is stemming from the question of how does this affect the way we see platonic male relationships? Are men going to be more scared than already they are, but are they going to be more scared of showing affection to one another and to be there for one another if all they see online is these characters and these conversations about who might possibly be queer because they're really close to that male friend of theirs? I think this is really a conversation that we need to have. If we want to see more healthy portrayals of masculinity, and that does include men supporting men, like in their mental health and well-being in general. If we want men to start showing up for other men in a healthy way, we can't constantly be assuming that their sexuality is anything but straight, anything but what they've communicated as straight. I don't think this is fair on them. I don't think this is fair on queer men. I don't think this is fair for closeted people. And I don't think this reflects well on us as queer creators of fan fictions and fan content. I think this is a big one. We want men to start acting against what they've been told all of their life, of not showing emotion to one another, of just sitting next to each other and nodding along and never ask questions. And then it's too late when there's something really big going on. And so I think this is quite important to talk about. My last reason, and then I promise I'm going to leave you with this to think about things, is let's try to understand how fandom affects real life and the real life of actors, authors, everyone involved in the media process. We've seen countless times of actors kind of having to step back from their friendship or from their professional engagements because of the rumors that were starting to pop up. And this is not to say that they might have been ashamed of coming out as queer, but because of the fact that they had stated that they were not queer and they were merely hanging out with friends and people that they worked with and loved, we're assuming a lot of things and we're letting or causing relationships to break down because we can't stop investigating every single detail of special appearances, of interviews, of behind the scenes. How is that fair to any person who's just doing their job? I understand that we as queer people want more representation and are dying to have certain characters be queer and have that be confirmed. And I realize that there's a lot of queer baiting still going on in media, but it is still not fair on the actors, on the authors to demand they act a certain way. And I really think this is kind of tragic in a way that fandoms have pushed away people that were otherwise really good friends. And maybe not the closest of friends anyway, but we've made their experiences as a job or, as friends really tough because we didn't let the fandom stay within the fandom. And so, yeah, these are my reasons. Let's start a discussion in the comments. Please let me know what you think about this entire topic because I think this is really important to talk about. And this marks the end of another video for me at Live for Queers. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Go check out my other videos and the blog in the link on my description because there's a lot that you haven't seen from me yet, and my blog has been on since 2018. So there's a lot more book recommendation, there's a lot more topics, a lot more discussions there, and you can go check them out. Until next time, bye!